Good morning. Welcome to the 2024 Small Business Finance Forum. It is with great pleasure that I stand before you today as we kick off the next 2 days. Today we are thrilled to see a crowd of nearly 600 people, our largest forum ever. Collectively, we are from more than 150 CDFIs, 17 different funders and investors, 6 separate federal or state agencies, and 48 unique industry stakeholders. We have a total of 24 breakout sessions across 6 tracks, numerous networking opportunities, deep dive trainings, and a reception. So whether you're here to learn, to network, or like me, just to see how much coffee you can drink over the next 2 days, we've got something for everyone. This growth is a testament to the increasing importance of CDFIs in small business finance. As we see more entrepreneurs and small businesses turning to CDFIs for support, it underscores the crucial role we play in fostering economic development and social equity. The demand for our services is higher than ever, and our impact is being felt in communities across the nation. It is also a testament to the dedication of everyone in this room. Your commitment to advancing financial inclusion and creating opportunities and driving positive change is what makes this forum so special. Each of you brings a wealth of knowledge, passion, and experience, contributing to the collective strength of our industry. Your hard work and perseverance are what drive us forward, so thank you. We have an exciting lineup planned for you, filled with opportunities for learning and knowledge sharing, innovative discussions, and a bit of fun along the way. I'm particularly excited about our plenary sessions, including one this morning featuring SBA Administrator with OFN's President and CEO, Harold Pettigrew, as well as a conversation about the importance of the State Small Business Credit Initiative. Our generous sponsors make all of this possible. Our deepest gratitude to JPMorgan Chase, our lead sponsor. And thank you as well to our gold sponsor, TD Bank. And our silver sponsor, Wood Forest National Bank. As sponsors of this event, you are helping us build an even stronger CDFI industry. Before I call Harold up to say some remarks, I want to provide some logistics. First, for those who haven't done so already, I highly recommend downloading the Forum app. It's the easiest way to access information about speakers, breakout room locations, and even connect with fellow attendees. Simply turn over your badge to find a QR code that will lead you directly to the app download page. All breakout rooms for the sessions will be located on the 4th or 6th floor. In order to foster more networking opportunities, we have allocated 30-minute breaks between sessions. All breaks will be in the ballroom foyer just outside those doors. This is a fantastic opportunity to engage with our expo partners and explore the valuable resources they have to offer. This is also where the reception will take place this evening. If you have any questions during the event, please stop by our registration desk, which is also on this floor. At last year's Small Business Finance Forum, everyone got to hear from our new President and CEO at the time, Harold Pettigrew. Well, it's been a year now, and what a transformational year it's been. As Harold will share in his remarks, OFN and the industry have accomplished so much. We are made for this moment. The industry received a vast majority of the $27 billion Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, with OFN selected to receive a $2.29 billion award. We convened more than 2,200 people at our conference last year, where Harold had a call to action for every CDFI to become a climate lender. We've ramped up the level of training and capacity building we provide for the individuals that work in the industry, and we are looking to grow that even more. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our still somewhat new CEO, Harold Pettigrew.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, I know we got a little more coffee in our systems than that. Good morning. Good morning. All right, that's a little better. Let's start with maybe our folks in Chicago, our Chicago folks in the house. Come on, what we got? All right, good deal. Thank you. I just want to start really by thanking the team, certainly for certainly a wonderful job. First, I want to thank our wonderful board chair, Donna Gambrell. And our board of directors. We have a couple board members here, and it may be a little difficult to see, but raise hands. I know we have Sarah Razavi here, Martina as well. Let's give a round of applause. Certainly want to thank our board for certainly their leadership and wonderful partnership. Now, I also want to thank the incredible OFN team, the staff and the event team. Let's give a round of applause. And they went through the painstaking details and Herculean efforts to design and deliver a high-impact event for you all. They even made sure that you had some nice weather this week as well. It's a little rainy today, but there's some sunshine for you to experience and have a good time. So just want to thank the team. And certainly thank you to our sponsors for making sure that we have certainly the support for this event, particularly to Chase, for being our lead sponsor for the forum this year. Let's give a round of applause. And last but certainly not least, to all of you, thank you all for attending today. Whether you're an OFN member or soon to be, a funder or an investor, a partner or supporter, I want to thank you for gathering here today and for your commitment to the success of small businesses all across the country. Thank you for attending. Give yourselves a round of applause. Two weeks ago, I celebrated my one-year anniversary serving as President and CEO. And feel free to clap at any point for anything that I say. I celebrated this milestone in two ways. First, I took a long nap. Never underestimate the power of a good nap. But second, I took the opportunity to reflect on the past year, where I began this journey with you a year ago, and reflecting on the importance of 2024 itself. It was last year at our 10th Small Business Finance Forum that we gathered and celebrated our largest gathering. That milestone has been eclipsed, as Seth mentioned, and I'm pleased to share with you as well again that this is our largest Small Business Finance Forum yet. When we first held the event 11 years ago in Chicago, 149 people gathered, understanding the importance of small business to the community development finance industry. Today, we gather as nearly 600. That's over 3x growth from communities all across the country together in common cause to meet the moment ahead. What's important, however, is not the number of attendees. It's why we gather. We know the challenges ahead are greater and more complex. And I know we're all clear-eyed about the challenges facing us and the small businesses that we serve. We know that inflation has increased the cost of doing business. It has eroded as well the purchasing power of our households, communities, and small businesses to buy the essentials. Our government partners have been actively slowing inflation, an effort that's led to higher interest rates and more expensive capital for our organizations and for small businesses. We're only a few years removed from pandemic shutdowns, and the complexion of our downtowns and main streets has changed. And we all are navigating hybrid work realities and shifting consumer behaviors. The policy environment is also changing. From programs designed to support underserved entrepreneurs and legal challenges, to changes in tax policy, to the potential implication of elections in November. The rapidly changing policy environment is forcing complex conversations about the way that we implement and frame our work. And of course, our environment is itself a bit volatile. Our climate isn't changing, it's changed. So 2023 actually has the dubious distinction of conclusively being the hottest year ever recorded, and possibly the coldest year for the rest of our lives. Our challenges have become greater and more complex, but so have we. The purpose of us gathering is that we can support each other in meeting this moment because we're made for this moment. Our accomplishments as an industry, our growing strength and impact in supporting small businesses show that we are made for the moment. We should be excited about the future and how we're positioned to meet it, because we also have history on our side. 25 years ago, in 1999, 81 OFN members made 1,900 small business loans. That accounted for nearly $83 million to entrepreneurs. 20 years later, in 2018, 138 OFN members made 98,000 small business loans totaling $915 million. Now wait for the next line. Just 4 years later, in 2022, 174 OFN members made 157,000 small business loans totaling $1.8 billion and created and retained more than 205,000 jobs in communities all across the country. Our ambition as an industry and a readiness for the moment has required us at OFN to also align our ambitions and ensure that we're also ready for the moment. The work you do not only inspires us, but fuels our ambitions and underpins the success we've experienced as an organization. In 2020, we launched the Finance Justice Fund and can celebrate that we've crossed the $200 million mark for capital deployment to over 150 members, with more than 50% of capital in the last 2 years being deployed to CDFIs with $25 million or less on their balance sheets. That's a wonderful feat to accomplish. We've grown our membership to over 410 members and solidified this network as the largest and most diverse in the community development finance industry. Now OFN also manages over $1 billion in total assets, solidifying our position as one of the nation's leading intermediary investors in community development finance. If we're clear-eyed about the challenges and have a deep sense of who we are and the accomplishments we can celebrate, we must also be clear-eyed about the unprecedented opportunities ahead of us and who we must become to confront the challenges ahead. I believe firmly that what got us here won't get us there. It's a mantra I use often with the OFN team in recognition that two truths can be right at the same time. It is important for us to celebrate what we've done. We have to celebrate everyone, big or small. Our work is often thankless, and most days the reward for great work is actually more work. We can celebrate what we've accomplished, but we know there's more to be done. And there are ways that we must be different to meet the moment and leverage the opportunities today so that we can confront the challenges of tomorrow. We designed the Small Business Finance Forum to help you leverage opportunities ahead. I think you all have heard now about a small program called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Some raise a hand or two. I see one in the back. GGRF represents a bold investment, $27 billion, that is not only to combat the climate crisis, but also to improve health outcomes, lower energy costs, and create higher quality jobs while strengthening our economy's economic competitiveness and ensuring our energy security. The success of this initiative was placed on our shoulders. This was the fullest of recognitions that for this $27 billion to leave no community behind, CDFIs are needed to ensure its success. We have to be different to embrace new strategies. We will have to develop together new pathways for the challenges ahead. To confirm, we're in uncharted territory, where we have for the first time an intentional focus on combining two segments of finance: community development finance and climate finance, to build a new industry, community development climate finance. With OFN's history and my firm belief that we're made for this moment, it was no surprise to me that OFN not only received an award under the Clean Communities Investment Accelerator, but we received the largest award. Last year at OFN 39 in Washington, D.C., I issued a call to action. That was for every CDFI by 2028 to become climate lenders. That your focus becomes greenhouse gas reduction, which means that for all of you, that we need you to keep providing capital to small businesses. It's critically important. But at the same time, we also need you to make greenhouse gas reduction your focus. Through our partnership with EPA, we're now bringing $2.3 billion to help you get there. OFN, like all the other GGRF selectees, is working closely with our partners at the EPA to negotiate and finalize budgets, work plans, and frankly, direction, so that we can launch the program in the coming months. We know that you have a lot of questions. And we've launched a new site, a new hub online that will help keep you up to date as we finalize guidance. climate.ofn.org. It's an understatement to say that GGRF is an important opportunity because of how critical it is to our future. But this moment includes so many other opportunities that we have the responsibility to seize. This year, we've invited our friends at Treasury, along with the Aspen Institute and industry partners, to discuss advances made to improve and help more CDFIs access the opportunities through SSBCI. That's the State Small Business Credit Initiative. Do you all remember when $10 billion used to be a lot of money? That used to be a whole lot. It actually still is. SSBCI represents a $10 billion investment opportunity to drive small business growth through financial capital and technical assistance. We need to work with Treasury and our state partners across the country to put these resources to work in our communities. These are just two public sector programs that represent over $37 billion worth of capital opportunities. We know there are plenty more spanning public, private, and philanthropic sources. We will need to embrace new methods for capital absorption and new ways of thinking about growth to scale the industry. It used to be that the only constant for our work was change. But now we know a bit better that there are two constants: change and disruption. It was 5 years ago that I shared with you from this stage my father's journey and the impact of drugs and incarceration on my family. It was because our focus during the 2019 Small Business Finance Forum was on expanding pathways to entrepreneurship and its power to create economic mobility for those left behind. Little did we know 9 months later that our complete focus as an industry would not just turn to ensuring that one community was not left behind, but it was a complete focus on survival of small businesses across the country. The last several years have called for the industry to mobilize capital needed to support communities in unexpected ways for unexpected challenges. It set the stage for where we are today. For the years ahead, we must embrace the opportunities and the possibilities of a future that may include unprecedented opportunities and unthinkable challenges. So the question for me is no longer whether we are made for the moment. I believe without a question that we are. The question now is, what do we need to do to meet the moment, the new moments ahead, the unknown threats? OFN has reached the end of its existing strategic plan. And in the coming months, we will begin laying the foundation for building a new strategic framework, infrastructure for scale. As we reach this 40-year milestone for development of the industry, we have to create a new blueprint to build the community development finance industry for the future. We will work closely with you to create a new plan for investing in strategies to adopt new structures, new systems, new solutions to scale the industry. and leading a CDFI before my arrival at OFN, I remember the lonely journey trying to scale and the recognition that more capital actually isn't the issue for growth. It's everything else. It's the recognition for me as well that we have to shift the paradigm of pushing you as CDFIs to scale versus creating an industry that has a new focus on scale solutions. This is so that we can honor the fact that we need small CDFIs and large CDFIs to meet needs within communities. We need both. We can't have cities that only comprise Walmarts and Targets. We have to have healthy small businesses along with medium and large businesses to fully meet our needs. It's no different with our industry. We need to invest in greater innovations and industry-based productivity and efficiency tools. This is in addition to leveraging technology systems and leveraging new tools and technologies like artificial intelligence. We need to invest and embrace in approaches like our friends at ScaleLink, a promising secondary market and liquidity solution for small business microlenders, in addition to new product development and workforce solutions to fully unlock the industry's capacity for impact. We need to invest in new structures for capitalization, for mobilization, for policy influence, to catalyze a new set of resources, organize the industry in a different way, and deliver and sustain industry growth, and combat policy and legal threats. Infrastructure for scale will be at the center of OFN's strategic agenda over the next year. In alignment with this approach, OFN will be leveraging the infrastructure for scale model to build a new small business practice, working with you to create an ecosystem of support with new systems, structures, and solutions designed to help you grow and scale. I think that's my time. No, it wasn't. I was just playing. I thought that was a Sandman pulling me off the stage at the moment. Our future is bright, and I cannot be more excited for what's to come. I believe that we are a key part of the solutions to the greatest challenges ahead. What a year it's been, and I want to thank you all for your extraordinary efforts. I am proud, I'm humbled to be here with you, and I want to thank you all for the work that you do day in and day out. Let's get to work. Let's have some fun. Thanks, everybody.
Please welcome to the stage Senior Director of Business Entrepreneur Initiative at Aspen Institute, Joyce Klein, and our panelists.
Good morning. It's bright up here. But it's great to be here today to talk with you this morning about the importance of the State Small Business Credit Initiative. It's great to follow. It's always.
Speaker on?
Can you hear me?
Now they can.
No.
Okay, I'll stop.
Go ahead, Joyce. I think they can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? No.
Can we go?
Thank you. How's that? All right. I have to juggle my notes, but can you hear me now? Okay, great. Hi, everyone. It's a delight to be here to talk about the State Small Business Credit Initiative. Keep it close to my mouth. Hopefully we've worked through everything right now. And I want to thank Harold and OFN for inviting us to be on the stage this morning, and Harold for setting us up so well for this conversation. I know there's been a lot of talk about that other acronym, GGRF, and the $27 billion that's been provided to work on issues of climate change, which is, of course, an incredible issue. But we also think there's a ton of opportunity for CDFIs and for the work of this set of CDFIs, who are CDFI small business lenders, through the State Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSBCI. And so we're delighted to be able to talk with you about it today. Harold talks about meeting the moment and about building the infrastructure for scale, and I think SSBCI is a really important tool for helping us build that infrastructure. So I'm delighted to talk about that. I lead the Business Ownership Initiative at the Aspen Institute, and for about 30 years, we've been working with CDFIs to build knowledge and build solutions that help them to scale their lending to small businesses, and our focus has been on microlending. And one of the key things we're working on right now is this question of how to leverage SSBCI for CDFIs. So I'm really happy to be talking about this. Before I get into talking about introducing my fellow panelists and get us into conversation, I just want to share a little bit of information about SSBCI for some of you who may not be that connected to it right now. The program was first created during the Obama administration as part of its response to the Great Recession. It provided funding for a number of years. That funding sunset. Some of the programs in states kept going because those funds continue to sit with the states. But SSBCI was reauthorized at the $10 million level by the Biden administration as part of the American Rescue Plan Act, thank you. Jessica knows that because she leads those programs at Treasury. And so it's a $10 million investment. Unlike some of the other programs that have supported CDFIs and provided funding through CDFIs through ARPA, the State Small Business Credit Initiative provides funding to states, also to territories and tribal governments, to enable them to set up programs to support small business financing. And those programs can take a number of different forms. States can create capital access programs, which are loan loss reserve or sort of loss insurance programs. They can create loan guarantee programs, loan participation programs, collateral support programs or venture capital programs. They also have the opportunity to propose other structures that they can propose to Treasury for approval. But essentially, the states are responsible for deciding how they're going to allocate those funds across a set of different programs subject to Treasury approval. So that's essentially how the program works. And what we want to talk with you a bit about today is why we think SSBCI is such an important opportunity for CDFIs and CDFI small business lenders. Let you hear from CDFIs who are really leveraging SSBCI as a key part of their way of how they drive impact and scale in their lending, and talk a little bit about resources that are out there that might be able to help you leverage SSBCI if that's something that you think can support your work as well. So let me introduce our panelists. To my immediate left is Jessica Milano. Jessica's Chief Program Officer for the Office of Recovery and also the Office of Capital Access at Treasury. What that means is she's responsible for implementing a range of programs at Treasury that are really helping communities to recover from the pandemic. And one of those is SSBCI. And Jessica's really familiar with SSBCI because she was engaged at Treasury in the first round of SSBCI, and she's done a lot of work. She's a longtime friend of the community finance space. So Jessica, great. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joyce.
Great. Thank you. Next is Sara Razavi. Sara is CEO of Working Solutions, a CDFI based in the Bay Area, California Bay Area, lending throughout Northern California, focused on early stage businesses, I think. Sara's also an OFN board member, so she's probably a familiar face to you. And then on my far left is Paul Quintero. Paul is CEO of Ascendus. Ascendus is a CDFI based in New York, but able to lend basically all over the country. I think you told me in the last 2 years, like 38 states you've originated loans in. Places a really strong focus on the financial health of its borrowers and its lending. The other thing I would say about both Working Solutions and Ascendus is they really do focus in the sub-$100,000 space. So the other thing I wanted to share about this work and ongoing efforts to help CDFIs leverage SSBCI. Is that there is a program called the Initiative for Inclusive Entrepreneurship, which we'll get into a little bit, which is really focused on helping to make sure that CDFIs can access this funding, and others that are really working with socially and economically disadvantaged individuals can access SSBCI funding. And the Business Ownership Initiative and our partners at ScaleLink are deeply involved in that, focusing specifically on how do we help CDFIs that do loans of less than $100,000 access that money. So let's get into our conversation. Jessica, I just wanted to let you kick the conversation off by talking a little bit about how SSBCI 2.0 is different than SSBCI 1.
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you for that very kind introduction, Joyce, and for putting together this amazing panel today. So SSBCI 2.0, how is it different from 1.0? Oops. We're just going to pass this down. Can you hear me now? Okay. So SSBCI 2.0, how is it different from 1.0 is the question. And I was going to say, first off, it's a little bit bigger. SSBCI 1.0 was $1.5 billion. This time around, it's $10 billion. And with the requirements from the statute to really bring private capital to match that, we expect the lending impact of this program to be many, many times greater than that $10 billion, up to potentially even $100 billion in lending or investment activities for small businesses throughout the country. It's an amazing resource. There are key features that are different this time around from SSBCI 1.0. First off, there are set-asides in the funding to support very small businesses, businesses with less than 10 employees, and to support businesses owned by what we're calling socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. So businesses that are minority-owned, women-owned, in rural communities, underserved businesses. There's a $1.5 billion set aside in the statute. Other things that are different this time around, the program is open for the first time to tribal governments, and we're excited to work with tribal communities and the CDFIs that serve tribal communities to help bring small business capital to tribal nations. And another key feature this time is there is over $400 million for technical assistance. And I think this is critical, particularly for the businesses that CDFIs serve and the micro businesses and very small businesses. There was no funding for TA in SSBCI 1.0, but in this iteration, Treasury has awarded $200 million in technical assistance funds to all states, territories, tribal governments by formula. We also transferred $125 million to the Minority Business Development Agency, again, to emphasize the impact on reaching underserved businesses, particularly as Joyce talked about, so much of TA support is focused on the credit side. There's very little support out there in the field right now for minority businesses trying to access venture, which is one of the eligible program types for SSBCI. And MBDA is really working hard and has made some really innovative awards to try to help support that and help make sure businesses from those communities are able to tap those SSBCI programs. And then we recently closed the application round for our Small Business Opportunity Program. And it's a $75 million competitive TA program that Treasury is running with a goal to encourage communities and local economic development leaders to think about how they leverage SSBCI with some of the historic funding that Joyce mentioned from ARP, from CHIPS, from BIL, to make sure they are helping small businesses access opportunities through the supply chain and through opportunities of working with bigger businesses from these historic sources of funding. Because businesses need credit, businesses need clients. And so that's another big piece of this that we're really excited about, and hopefully we'll be able to announce awards in the fall.
Thank you. And I'm just wondering if you could also share because of the focus on SETI, or socially and economically disadvantaged, and because that fits so closely with the work that CDFIs do, can you talk a little bit about the Initiative for Inclusive Entrepreneurship, which is a partnership of the Biden administration?
Absolutely. So I think many of you in this room that work in this field day in day understand that the pandemic for many Americans shone a spotlight on structural inequalities that were probably familiar to you, but it really highlighted it, I think, for the country overall. And I think a focus of this administration has been building back stronger and focusing on inclusive economic growth, making sure that funding from this historic legislation is used to support socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, underserved communities, and building a more inclusive economic recovery. It's a really important feature of SSBCI. It's important to the Treasury Department, and I think it's important to all of you. We know from SSBCI 2.0 transactions to date, about 40% of loans or investments overall are going to minority-owned businesses, but amongst CDFIs participating in SSBCI 2.0 to date, 60% is going to minority-owned businesses. So CDFIs are a huge component of this. And what the Initiative for Inclusive Entrepreneurship, IIE, is trying to do is help bring more CDFIs into SSBCI, building communities of practice and sharing what works amongst the sort of various state programs and practitioners in the field along several verticals. So how can we help identify what works for the VC vertical or the supplier vertical or for microfinance, and make sure that we're sharing that awareness with states and implementing entities so that they can modify and improve their programs to make them work better for CDFIs and bring more CDFIs into the program to help keep that going.
We can't hear you in the back still.
Hold the mic closer, maybe.
Okay, microphone very close. Does that help? Okay, okay. Sarah, I'm gonna go to you next. You're a kind of a long-time participant. Working Solutions is in SSBCI, so tell us a little bit about how you've participated and what that's meant to the organization.
Sure. Can you hear me, or I need the mic? Oh, there it is. There it's on. Okay. So yes. So before I start about the how, and part of the reason for this panel is to encourage and excite folks to leverage and use this program. So I'm going to start a little bit about the why. My family immigrated here when I was born in Iran, and we immigrated here when I was 10 years old. And the process of coming on a tourist visa that eventually expired, and then from that, waiting to get sponsorship, to get a green card, and then citizenship, that took 10 years. 10 years in limbo, where my family had to figure out exactly how they were going to capitalize and had limited access to resources. They leaned on, thankfully, generational support, a wave of previous immigrants who'd come, my grandparents who had a home, and also on other immigrant communities who were able to allow my mom to work under the table until she was able to get her green card, get the citizenship she required, and eventually start her own business, actually 2 businesses. That's a deep why for why I'm here. Because it's making sure that those businesses get access to capital. And at Working Solutions, as Joyce mentioned, we are primarily a micro lender. We do lend up to 100,000, but 80% of our loans are less than 50,000. 24,000 is the average size. Our niche, we serve Northern California. Happy to say that we're going to be expanding statewide very soon. In Northern California, our niche in that ecosystem has been to serve startup and early stage businesses pre-revenue. As an early stage lender, and when we started with SSBCI, especially 1.0, we were still originating very few loans. And even then, we were hesitant to participate in the program because having an off-balance sheet loan loss reserve program, even though there was a match, was a burden for a smaller CDFI. We had to calculate our on-balance sheet loan loss reserve. We were participating in the SBA microloan program, and some of our funders required their own set-aside. But we still stepped in. And that's, I hope, what you take away from this, is it took us a little bit to get there, but we stepped in. And I found out recently, over the last year, with about 500 loans into the program, and we participated from 2011 to 2017, 500 loans in the program. We were 5th in transactional in California. So how many transactions we did? I know. I know. That's 120 CDFIs, and to be ranked 5th with an asset size at that time of less than 10 million says a lot about taking advantage of an opportunity. But I also want to highlight that the other side of it, and I know Axion Opportunity Fund is in the room. We look up to them quite a bit for all the work that they have done as a larger CDFI. At the time, I'm not sure if they were multi-state yet, but they certainly were already a pretty big presence in California with SSBCI 1.0. Just to give you a set, they were the number one CDFI utilizing the program, and their transaction size was about 6,000. So there is a deep variance between the topmost users and some of the others, but it's still important to start to engage. And I hope that's a big takeaway for us. SSBCI 2.0, it's early yet, as you all just noted. It's 8 months in, and previously we participated in the CalCap Loan Loss Reserve Program primarily. In 2020, we stepped into the State Guarantee Program, which is a match for one-to-one rather than a pool. And the State Guarantee Program, right now we're participating in both, either CalCap or the State Guarantee. SSBCI 2.0, we've originated about 6 million and enrolled about 5 million into 2.0. So heavily engaged in this version again, but as was noted already, this is at the core of why we do the work. We are not participating in SSBCI because they're encouraging us to do so. It's helping us leverage our balance sheet, especially in a rising credit and rate environment. There are many funders and investors who really do look to see how well reserved you are, what kind of credit enhancements you have in place, and so it helps us to have this off-balance sheet opportunity.
So super important to understand that one of the opportunities in SSBCI is that it gives you an additional tool to help you manage your risk and manage your balance sheet, particularly as you're looking to grow. So, Paul, you're a newbie you've just joined in 2.0, but you're doing that in multiple states. So tell us a little bit about how you're participating in SSBCI right now.
So good morning. I don't see it other than the top of heads, anyone, but for us, what started this was the pandemic. So March 13th, Friday the 13th, everything stopped. And so what were we trying to solve in, I'll call it the pre-version, because we were not part of the SSBCI 1.0, and if I had known what I know now, it's like, wow, so don't make the same mistake we did. But what happened? Everything stopped, so we weren't getting repayments, which means we could not do the work that we wanted to do. People needed access to capital, and with the world stopping, obviously credit as a lender is something you think about. How do you mitigate all that? So liquidity, serving people, and especially at that time as many as you can, and mitigating your risk. Those are the three things we were trying to do. And we set up a program through a collaboration that essentially helped establish the way we're participating as a loan participation program. And that version that I'll call the pandemic 1.0 for us is tied into and was kind of designed and fit into the SSBCI 2.0 that we're talking about today. And there's no exaggeration to say that it has very much completely changed our organization in terms of the size and the scale of access to capital. Before the pandemic, we were probably issuing something in the order of 20 million a year. We're now in the 70 million, and over the next 3 years, we expect to lend about $250 million, doing what we already do for the people we already serve because of these type of programs. And the benefits are still the same. It's allowing us to serve more people. It's providing a more efficient way to use our capital. And it does help mitigate the additional, otherwise, loan loss provisions you'd have to incur. And so you don't have to take all of that to maximize what you do. What it's not going to do, and I just want to be very clear, is it doesn't change the fundamental challenges of our field. You still have to raise debt. You still have to raise fundraising. You still have to think about productivity, but just in different ways, and we might get into that in a moment. But it's an accelerator. So if you're an organization looking to take, I'll say, a step function from wherever you're at to some higher level because you want to serve more people, I think this is going to be a great accelerator. And as Joyce said, we started in New York. These programs that we've participated in have taken us into other areas, basically trying to standardize the same approach. And it has been completely transformational in terms of that access. And I encourage it for those that want to pursue it, and we'll get more into some of the pluses and minuses.
So, Paul, one of the things I just wanted to clarify also is, so SARA's been using capital access program and guarantee program. You've been stepping into some loan participation programs in a couple of different states where you're lending.
Correct.
So, Sarge, want to hear you share maybe a little bit about what you found to be effective, because using a government program is never easy. It takes work. So what have you found to be effective, and what are some of the challenges you're still facing as you're navigating this SSBCI landscape?
Sure. In California, our program is run partially through the iBank and through also the California Office of Small Business, as well as intermediaries through the FDC. So there's lots of players in California. And you would think that actually might be, it does create some hurdles, but it also gives you lots of access points. So we have had great contact with both our FDC as well as, who underwrites, in our case, the state guarantee program, as well as with the department itself. In fact, the leadership, the director, was there speaking with many of our staff and other CDFIs who participate. But also, I think a thing that's been effective is having, and I talked about Axion Opportunity Fund, having larger CDFIs who've participated, not just in our state, but also in other states, to really be able to speak to what's effective in one place and then the other. We looked to, in SSBCI 1.0, there was a concern about recapture for CalCap, that what was not being used ultimately in a deficit environment was considered, let's see what we can take back. That's one of the reasons 1.0 we hesitated in returning because of that whole issue. But we participated with these larger CDFIs, other players, to together come and really advocate for that not to be the way it goes in 2.0. So really happy that that's been removed. But also that coalition of effort started us around the Small Business Responsible Lending Act. A lot of the players that were advocating for SSBCI and CalCap support ultimately ended up coalescing around other issues. So that's one thing, leaning in on those who have been in the space and having those open lines of communication. And then just knowing that the recapture piece isn't gonna be an issue this time around. I think an issue certainly, ultimately, this is a program, and Paul touched on this, this is a program you still have to have fees. You're participating in it at a cost. There's match in the CalCap pool, but some CDFIs choose to pass on that fee directly to the client. As a microlender, we've chosen not to do that. Moving forward, that may not be something we can sustain, particularly again in a tighter budget environment. So concerns about that, but I also think there's opportunity to be able to flex a little bit there.
Paul, would love to hear you share a little bit about the benefits and challenges of working with SSBCI, and also, you know, one of the things I think about is as Harold said, like there's a lot coming at CDFIs right now. A lot of things that we are made for the moment, and it means that people are asking CDFIs to step up to the moment. So why is it worth your time as a CEO and as an organization to think about investing in making this program work for you?
So I was going to do something very different that day, and I'm going to simplify this because we have a lot of senior leaders here that really need to hear the bottom line. And so I said, well, what's the bottom line? And I think, Sarah, you highlighted it. We don't want to do something that's ancillary to what is core, and what's core is who we're serving. So one thing that we keep our eye on is, are these programs reaching the individuals that we want to serve? Something you have to monitor. So we've been across different programs, and I guess I'll just say lessons learned is how I'm going to phrase this. Some programs, because they're statewide, might market, might do outreach in different ways. For us, it's worked really, really well. The markets that we're in have consistently been those that we want to serve, and so that hasn't changed, and it's helped us scale that across many areas. But something to watch for, and you can also fix that through the early design of who's eligible. So this goes back to your point about size. You have to lean into the design part of that, and that's not an SSBCI issue. That's a programmatic, collaborative issue you do with your peers to make sure that you're serving who you want to serve. So that's the same. The credit risk, it's your underwriting. You know, you decide who you're going to serve, and the beauty of not only allowing others that aren't domiciled in your state to participate beyond the volume is the diversity that we all have here in terms of what we do. So I'm sure every bank despises the fact that they get aggregated and considered all the same, and I'm sure we do the same. We do some things that are different, The startup, the early stage is very different than what I think other organizations do. Having SARA as part of your collaboration could really help fill that continuum. So the credit risk that you take is still yours, but you're able to do it at a bigger scale. The capital, you still have to capital raise, and that's one lesson that we've learned. Has nothing to do with the program, but it's an accelerator. Even if you only hold 20% of the loan, you've got to fund that 20%. What's great is I can serve 5 people versus 1. So the old model is I borrow $1, I help 1 person, I keep it on my books, and it just sits there. The new model is I take my same dollar of net assets, but I'm able to, the velocity goes 5 times because I only have to hold 20. I still need that dollar. You still need that net asset. And so the fundraising, I said earlier, those needs don't change. But the economics is another thing that we have to be mindful of. The current version fixes things that we didn't have during the pandemic. The interest rates in the programs that we're doing now are, I think, rational again. The origination fees are the same that we would have generated. So what we're finding is if you're able to serve 5 people versus 1, but your balance sheet doesn't necessarily change too much, your program fees through origination grow. And so one of the things that another lesson learned is your origination income is going to be a much more volatile part of what you do. But if you have the capacity and interest to do that, your P&L is going to change a little bit, but you already have those capacity lungs to do it. So these are just examples. I know there's a lot more. We won't get to all of it, but it's an incredible accelerator of what you're already doing, but you have to make sure that it's serving what you were trying to do before, and if it does, I think it could really lift our work.
So thank you, Paul. Jessica, as I mentioned, and you mentioned, Treasury is really keen for CDFIs to step into this. So what encourages you about what you've heard from Sarah and Paul today, and what would you leave the CDFIs in this, what would you want them to take away from this conversation?
No, thank you so much. I think it's, can you all hear me? That's okay, I'm just going to do this.
Oh, there
It'll
you
work.
go.
Okay, so no, it's a great question, and I really appreciate the conversation amongst the panelists today, and Joyce for leading us. I think what I want folks to take away from with SSBCI is some of the themes that have already been touched on. We have seen over the last 3 to 4 years historic levels of federal funding into CDFIs, whether it's the $3 billion through the Equitable Recovery Program and the Rapid Response Program, or the additional $8.5 billion through ESIP. CDFIs have received a lot of grant or equity capital. SSBCI is not a grant or equity program. It's a tool. It's a tool to help de-risk lending. And I think, Harold's themes on building infrastructure and scale, Paul picked up on that. It's not scale for scale's sake. It's scale to expand impact. It's a tool to help you do what you do best and help grow your business and have a broader impact with more investors served. So that's what gets me excited about this opportunity for CDFIs. What I want CDFIs to take away, we are only just getting going on SSBCI 2.0. There's many, many years ahead, so it's not too late to join one of these amazing programs. The funding itself stays with states and is evergreen and will be there for many years to come. Other thing I want CDFIs to take away is that states have an incentive to work with you all. Treasury disperses the capital to states in 3 tranches. They have to spend it down to get their second tranche, to get their third, et cetera. There is a SETI incentive set aside I mentioned at the top of $1.5 billion. So the more they lend and the more they lend to SETI businesses, the more capital they unlock. As I mentioned, about 40% overall of SSBCI transactions are SETI, but amongst CDFIs, it's 60%. They need you, and you can help use this tool to help expand your reach and de-risk some of your lending. So I think the final point I'll make, Joyce, is that there are many resources available to you, whether it's the state, the Treasury resources, but I encourage you to reach out to your peers and to work with folks like at IIE and at Aspen to help build communities of practice, help learn what works from other states and other programs, and bring that to your state leaders and to Treasury to help us understand how we can improve and make the SSBCI 2.0 an even better tool for you.
So I hope we've got you excited. And the last thing that I will leave you with is that there is a breakout session immediately following this on some of the work that we've been doing on Initiative for Inclusive Entrepreneurship. And so please join us there if you want to learn more. And thank you so much. Thanks to my panelists. And thanks again to OFN.